Hey guys, you're back with Steph and Dennis, and today we're talking about the financial side of renting a place and how to navigate the rental process easily. You've probably seen some of our recent videos on renting versus buying real estate, the current rental market here in Toronto, and also some videos of us touring different spots in the city. And if you haven't seen those videos yet, then you should probably check out our All Things Real Estate playlist after this video is done. Also, you do probably already know that we are planning on buying real estate in the future and really diving into real estate investing later on. I currently have about $30,000 saved up, and I'm growing that every month, and Den is doing the same thing. We're currently adding to that so we can eventually have a good chunk of money for a down payment. But we will be continuing to rent for our primary residence for likely the next few years. So today we wanted to continue the conversation about real estate by talking about all the costs that go into renting, from the obvious to not so obvious costs. We're also really excited because we've partnered with liv.rent, an all-in-one platform made for renters, landlords, and property managers to automate the rental process all in one place. Their focus is on digitizing the entire rental process to take the stress out of the rental process. We'll share more about how you can use them to make this experience easier for free, and also how you can actually find rentals in your budget in large markets like Toronto and Vancouver. So if you're excited for this video and more videos on renting and real estate and everything in between, show us some love down below, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it. Renting anywhere, but particularly in big cities like Toronto and other comparable markets, can really be expensive. Even with the price, like we mentioned before on our channel, of different condos and apartments in the downtown core dropping in price since the beginning of the pandemic. We've seen this by touring different units that have dropped by over $500 per month, and even the opportunity to potentially negotiate lower current rent prices with your landlord that you have right now is something that we did not think would be a possibility when we first moved to Toronto just under 3 years ago now. But again, even though we're in a renter's market and sometimes the prices seem to be lowering, spending thousands of dollars in rent each month should still definitely not be an afterthought. The first thing that you obviously need to think about when you're going into renting a place is actually knowing what your budget is for the monthly rent cost. And the most common and good recommendation that we try and go by is to spend no more than 30% of your monthly take-home pay on your monthly rent costs. So for a quick example, if you made $4,000 per month, combined total per month, then you should spend no more than $1,200 in your monthly rent. And again, that's the recommendation, but lower is always better if you're able to do that. My take-home pay is very similar to the example that I just gave, and in my case, you all know if you've watched our videos, I spend $925 on rent personally, and about $1,015 per month on things like hydro, internet, other utilities combined with that rent price. So altogether, even including those costs, that's only about 25% of my monthly take-home pay. So on top of that, like I just mentioned, you do always have to keep in mind that does that rent cost that you're calculating in your budget also cover things like those utilities, hydro, heating, internet, water costs, anything else that's not in the rent price. Make sure you're keeping that in mind as well and that you're budgeting for those costs too. So we really recommend working backwards, starting with what your take-home pay is per month, making sure you exclude any taxes or other deductions, and then see what the cost is, the average in your city, let's say, for heating, for hydro, for internet, just in case those aren't included in the rent, and have those as well. Whatever is left over is what you can actually budget for the true rent cost. And again, keep that 30% rule in mind with all of those expenses. Once you have that number for your monthly rent cost as well, see if that's even possible for the area that you're looking in. Again, Den and I did do this exercise when we were moving to Toronto, and the amount that we came up with, we knew would be possible in Toronto, but it might dictate what area we're able to look in, right? So look at what the average prices are, look at what the lowest possible prices are, and then maybe that decides where exactly you're gonna live based on that, right? Maybe you can't afford to live right downtown, you have to give and take somewhere else to make that happen, but make sure you know your budget and you're able to stick to it. We also want you to keep in mind that those monthly rent prices, along with all those other monthly costs, are not the only expenses that you'll have when you're first moving in to a rental. So in our experience moving to Toronto, we were asked to pay upfront costs of first and last month's rent, which was $3,700, a security deposit of $100, a key deposit of $100. We had to rent a moving vehicle, which cost about $150 for the weekend that we needed it. What else? At the request of our landlord, we also had to get rentals insurance, which was $275 for 1 year. Those were a lot of amounts I just threw at you, but I'll sum it up for you. That was a total of $4,325 in upfront costs before we even moved in. Luckily, we were 2 people, so for us, each it was only just over $2,000, but those are still a lot of costs that you don't typically or you don't always adequately think of and budget for at the beginning of your move, as opposed to just looking at your monthly costs. And again, depending on your life stage, that still could could definitely be a lot of money that you might not have. Lastly, before we wrap up the whole budgeting talk, keep in mind that there's normally also furniture items or other home items, things like that that you might need when you move in, cleaning supplies, whatever it is. Make sure that you're accounting for everything. Even if those are small expenses, every expense does add up, especially with those upfront costs, so keep those in mind. Now, if all of the budgeting talk sounds a little overwhelming, it might be, but trust us, it's definitely more overwhelming if you're not actually prepared, and it makes the actual searching process and moving in process more fun when you know what all fits into your budget and you're not stressed thinking about if you can actually make it work financially.
Okay, so now that we've covered the budgeting and the expenses side to renting, let's talk about everything else that you need to consider. Let's say you have your ideal budget or your budget range. What do you do next? Well, for us, what was key was knowing what we needed to have, what we wanted to have, and honestly, what didn't matter to us. In our case, we needed to be close to public transit. We wanted in-suite laundry. We wanted, honestly, like a cleaner and modern looking place that just seemed more, refreshed. And we needed just the right amount of space to fit in either a desk or a home office. Now, if you were to take a look at our nice to haves list at the time, what would have been key was definitely a walkable location. So being able to get to the grocery store, get to a local bank, be able to walk to work, different coffee shops, that sort of thing. Maybe a separate room for our living space, a den, potentially a home office that had its own room. So if we take a look on the flip side on things that didn't really matter to us when we were looking, those would be things like a dishwasher, different amenities. Those honestly are just things that we didn't really care about at the time. But really, once we had that list settled, or once you have your list settled, then it's on to the next set of questions. From there, you're probably thinking, where do I look for an apartment? How do I qualify for an apartment? Do I need a realtor? These are obviously really great questions, really important questions at that, but this is also where a platform like liv.rent comes in, which we'll talk about in a second. In all honesty, if I think back to when we were looking for apartments, looking for condos, one of the biggest struggles that we face here in Toronto was the pace of the entire process. I mean, even in terms of getting started, unless you already know that you need a realtor, how else would you know that information, right? At first, me and Steph definitely thought that we could do it on our own, which you can, but like I said before, the process moves so quickly and there's so many things that you don't necessarily know yourself that in my opinion would honestly make things so much more tough and add so much more pressure on your plate. What's interesting about that, especially if you look at our experience, when we first got started in the entire process, we actually got a realtor referral from one of our friends and it honestly did not go well, like at all. Basically, it felt like he didn't care once we told him that our budget was $2,000 and preferably less than that amount. It was such a struggle and hassle just getting in contact with them once we actually got started in the application process. Anyways, like we mentioned at the beginning, we're working with liv.rent on this video, and they're basically a platform that allows landlords and renters to complete the entire process all in one place. If you hop on their platform, you'll be able to find verified listings, digital applications, and contracts. So something else that's cool is that they also have a secure digital filing cabinet, which will make renting super easy and secure. It basically limits the amount of concerns that you have in the process, and you can even look at it like a one-stop shop, so starting from actually starting your application process and moving forward. So to give you guys a brief background, liv.rent started in Vancouver and they've recently expanded to Toronto with over 3,000 listings in the GTA so far. Really, the reason we wanted to share this with you is because if we think back to our experience, we know for sure something like this would have definitely made things a lot easier. So we also wanted to point out that we didn't actually use this service in order to get the place that we're in right now. Their service didn't exist at the time, and like we said before, we had to use our realtor who wasn't really keen on helping us find the cheapest place. But what we are going to do now is we're going to actually jump on their website and show you how the process works, and we're going to walk through it as if we were finding a place that's within our budget.
So this is the liv.rent platform. Right off the bat, you can see that you are able to search by your city, by a specific building, or by a specific property management company. So for us, we're just going to select Toronto because that's where we are. And right when it pops up right now, what you'll see is that you're looking at a map of all of the available listings in the city you selected, or building or company as well, depending on what they have available. So that is all of the listings here. What I like about this is that it looks pretty similar to what you would see, or what realtors would actually see on the back end, and give all of the different information and allow you to really filter down and see all the units available within a range. Something else that's pretty cool is that you'll see we're not signed in right now, but when you click into these units, which I'll show you in just a second, you can actually click through and see all the details and all of the photos. I do find that on a lot of other sites when Den and I are looking at places, you have to log in, make an account, just to see the photos, even to view them, not to actually action anything. But here on the liv.rent platform, you don't have to sign in, which is a nice start when you're just wanting to quickly browse at places. You're also able to switch your view if you'd rather see the listings in a list as opposed to in a map form. And of course, you can filter down to find your different search parameters. So let's go for what Den and I would be looking for. If we were looking for a place right now, we'd probably find a condo. Let's pick our budget of $1,850 a month. A 1-bedroom. Any furniture is fine. I guess unfurnished we would go with. You can also pick if you want a pet allowed or not allowed. And the availability too, depending on when you'd be looking to move in. And show results. Something else that is pretty cool about the liv.rent app is that you can also search for amenities. So earlier we mentioned that we'd be looking for as a need to have in-suite laundry. And if we wanted to, instead of searching through all these listings that fit our other criteria, but maybe don't have laundry, you can also do a search for laundry as well and make sure that that is included for you. And it comes up directly, whether it's the building or the unit that has laundry available. So now you could skim through all these different listings and options. You could continue to filter down if you wanted to. You could look on the map. In our case, we're going to go over to one that we have already selected that we would be interested in. So here's what I was mentioning before. You can see all of the different photos of the building, of the unit itself. Again, without logging in, which is fun. We liked this building here. Lots of photos of the building in particular right now. That's what I searched up. And again, let's find one of the units in particular. In our budget, 1 bed, 1 bath. So again, in this case, you would see photos of the building, but also the unit itself. You can also scroll down, and again, you see all of the different information on this place. So the bedrooms, number of bathrooms, how many square feet, furnished is available in this case, the lease type, about the property in general, the features. So again, in-suite dryer shows up right there, in-suite washer. And another feature that I think is pretty fun is this location one right now. So you can actually see how close it is to public transit, specifically en route to where that location is, how far of a distance it is from public transit. Basically everything that you need to know or you would need to see is all here neatly listed in one page for you. Something else you can do that I was kind of showing you before with this building is looking up a specific building and actually comparing all the different units inside of it. So let me do one more, because if you watched our recent touring apartments in Toronto videos, then you would know that I loved this one building called the Harlow in Toronto. Yes, the Harlow Lofts. So if you look up this building, you'll actually be able to see any of the units available inside of it. So again, let's say you really loved a building or an area and you wanted to live there. You weren't so specific on the units. It was more so the building itself. You can see all of the different building amenities, some details on its history, and then again, compare the two. Right now, there's 2 listings available for it on liv.rent. 1 bed, 1 bath, about $150 difference per month. And you can compare the details right here. So if we jump back into that unit that we found before that was in our budget over here, something else you'll notice is the details on the realtor. What you'll notice is that they have a little verified check mark beside their name. This means that it's actually a verified listing, or that the realtor or person who's managing this property themselves has also been verified by liv.rent. And again, on their site, you'll see this, about 90% of their landlords and realtors are verified at any given time. So it does give you the ability to know that you are chatting with people who have been vetted by the site that you're using, and hopefully you can avoid any rental scams. The last thing we'd want to point out here is that you can actually chat directly with the realtor or landlord through this little contact box and set up in a time to actually view the place. So again, all in one place, all online. You can connect with them there and use the appointment scheduler. I know I just said that was the last thing, but I have one more quick one. After you have actually set up a time to view the unit and you toured one, maybe a few, you can also actually apply right directly on the liv.rent site, allowing you to complete the entire rental process all in one place and on one site. So you would set up a profile, click apply now, and do it all through liv.rent. So I'm going to pass it back over to Den to take you through the end of the renting process and everything you need to know when you're actually applying.
So we hope that overview showed you how easy it can be to search and apply for units all on one site, and how liv.rent helps you save time and money. Like we always say, time equals money during the entire rental process. Anyways, before we go, we also wanted to cover what you need to prepare for when you're actually applying. So in our experience, we needed to share our credit score, our credit history, pieces of ID. So this could be your driver's license. In our case, we also needed to share our employment contracts. What is interesting is that at the time, me and Steph were both on limited term contracts at work. So we actually needed to also share a letter of intent from our employers, basically saying that they plan to keep us on even after the duration of our contracts. You might also have to share your pay stubs or your salaried income, which would probably be listed on your employment contract, your rental history, bank statements to prove that you can actually afford to pay for the unit. So this includes those upfront upfront cost that we mentioned earlier in the video, and we also had to provide character references. So we basically just used ex-roommates and friends, basically. So now, even with all of that, you still have to get done the application, the official application for the units that you're applying for. It's definitely a lot to think of, and it's also, as you can see, a lot of paperwork to actually get together. So we highly recommend that you get this done or try and get started before you actually go into the formal process. So once again, liv.rent can clearly make this process a lot easier. You only have to upload your information and your files once, and then from there they generate a renter's resume, which of course you can customize, but you can actually use that single resume to apply to as many units as you want. Once you submitted your renter's resume, aka your tenant application, to the landlord, they, being the landlord, will then receive it instantly, and if everything goes well, they'll then send over a standard lease for you to sign and hopefully seal the deal, and you're good to go. In our experience, we were actually rejected by the first place that we had applied to initially, probably because at the time we were on limited term contracts. If you remember, I mentioned that before, and we were clearly young, we were new grads, and at the time in the Toronto market, things were just moving so fast and there were so many applications going back and forth. Basically, all this is to say that it can happen even if you have all the money you need. Just make sure that you're prepared for that and you're willing to apply to more than one place. Something to keep in mind is that if you're really in love with a certain unit and it's below your budget, what you could suggest is either a one-time payment or increasing the rent to something that'll make sure that you secure that place. Obviously, you could utilize the liv.rent platform for this as well when you're actually submitting your application. Alright guys, so that's it for this video. We hope that it was helpful. We also hope that you're ready to budget, pay for, and find your next rental. Let us know if you'd be interested in hearing a similar video, but on buying real estate and what the true costs associated with going down that path are. We'd definitely be happy to make that one as well. Once again, we want to give a shout out to liv.rent for sponsoring this video. We're going to have their IG, their website, and other information linked down in the description box below. If you're looking for rentals right now, check out their platform. Hopefully you'll find the best spot for you. At the end of the day, if you want to save time and money, you got to automate your processes. But with that being said, if you guys haven't checked out already our past real estate videos, make sure you do check them out next door. Once again, we'll catch you in the next video, and let's go.